In this screencast, we're going to talk about the neuromuscular junction. As we talk about the neuromuscular junction, you will notice that there are many similarities to a synapse within the nervous system because a neuromuscular junction is a synapse. So this screencast is going to be mostly review of a synapse and then adding a little bit of specific information because we're talking about this specific type of synapse called the neuromuscular junction. As a reminder, you have a neuron, which is a basic nerve cell, and an impulse is going to travel from this end where it was received by the dendrite. It's going to go down the axon and reach the axon terminals. As another reminder, a neuron, as we know, is a nerve cell. Motor neurons, or efferent neurons, are going to conduct electrical impulses away from the central nervous system, and in this case, they're going to control skeletal muscles. Again, motor neurons control other things as well, such as glands or smooth muscle, but in the neuromuscular junction, we're going to be talking about skeletal muscle. And so when the impulse reaches the muscle, it will cause contraction. Contraction of the skeletal muscle is an entirely different screencast and a quite complicated process, and so that we'll talk about later. A motor unit is the name for a motor neuron and the muscle fibers it's going to control. So you can see here we have a motor neuron, and then it controls all of these different muscle fibers. So the neuromuscular junction is the connection or the synapse between a motor neuron and the muscle that it's going to control. A synapse, as we may remember, is a functional, not physical, there is a little gap, connection between a neuron and another neuron or a skeletal muscle. In this case, we're talking about the connection between a neuron and a skeletal muscle. The synaptic cleft is a small gap that separates the membrane of the neuron from the muscle fiber. So as you can see here, there's a little bit of a gap. They don't physically touch. Neurotransmitters are the chemicals that are going to enable the impulse from the neuron to then travel into the muscle, right? Neurotransmitters enable the neurons to communicate with other neurons, and in this case, the muscle. The neurotransmitter that we're going to be talking about within the muscular system is called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is abbreviated ACH. We find acetylcholine in other parts of our body as well, but we're going to focus on it within the muscle contraction. At the end of the motor neuron, you have lots of little projections that are going to extend into the muscle fiber. So you have all of your different axon terminals, and there are lots of different ones that go into the muscle fiber or near the muscle fiber. Remember, they don't touch. In the end of the motor neuron, you're going to have a lot of mitochondria, and you're also going to have the vesicles that are storing acetylcholine. Finally, we'll talk about the motor end plate. The motor end plate is a specialized part of the muscle fiber. So this is the muscle end of the neuromuscular junction. There are also a lot of nuclei and mitochondria in this part, and the sarcolemma, which we remember is the cell membrane, is folded. And so by folding it, we have a lot of surface area so that you can see it kind of wraps around the ends of the neurons so that the impulse can be transmitted when it comes down the axon. So if you would like, you may find it helpful to practice by drawing a neuromuscular junction. Again, this is a synapse, but in this case, the synapse is not between one neuron and another, but rather one neuron and the muscle fibers. So you can draw the motor neuron itself as well as the muscle fiber. The impulse is going to be going from the motor neuron into the muscle fiber. You can draw the synaptic cleft, the motor end plate, which, as a reminder, is the folded end of the muscle fiber, the neurotransmitters in their vesicles. In this case, we're talking about acetylcholine, and remember those mitochondria. Muscles need lots of mitochondria because they need a lot of energy. So we want to make sure we remember to draw them on both sides in our diagram. that is an overview of the neuromuscular junction.